Mac here on Bridge 365. Jeff Kerr from CBSSports.com. Good enough to jump in with us. Jeff, I'll ask the question the way I want to ask the question, and John can follow up and take it with you wherever you want. Why is Derek Barnett still a member of the Philadelphia Eagles?
That's a good question, but I'll tell you right now, they were never getting Leonard Floyd, Jody Mac. So really, they're waiting on Derek Barnett to see what he can do.
Do you know the details of the Floyd contract with the Buffalo Bills? Why he signed with Buffalo, but the Eagles had no chance of getting him? Please explain that to me.
Well, the Eagles have enough depth at defensive end right now. They drafted Nolan Smith for a reason. They have Josh Sweat. They have Brandon Graham. They have Hassan Reddick. Where was Leonard Floyd going to play on this team?
Okay. Then fair enough. I'll get back to my original question. Why is Derek Barnett here? Since the Eagles are 4 deep at defensive end and they don't need an upgrade, Derek Barnett, as of right now, I think it's fair to say you could not argue he's in the top 4 in the defensive end rotation. So if they weren't going to touch Leonard Floyd because they're too rich at that position, why is Derek Barnett still here?
Honestly, I think it's more for a depth situation, and they're hoping none of their top 4 guys get hurt, as I heard John say before the break. And the second part of it is, if none of those guys get hurt, I think they want to trade Derek Barnett and get compensation for him. I'm sure Derek Barnett's camp would love for him to get released right now, so he would have an opportunity to go somewhere else. But who would sign Derek Barnett? So it's Howie Roseman is playing the waiting game, and when the team eventually will need a pass rusher, say late August, and Derek Barnett's probably not going to make the 53-man roster, Howie Roseman said, you know what, give me a 6, give me a 7 for him. I'll do that.
Yeah. And one thing I should have mentioned too is Derek is obviously coming off a torn ACL. So it was week 1, early September. So what do you see? 9 months would be early June. So right now is about, maybe mid-June. Maybe he'll get cleared. Obviously, as you get later in the summer, he becomes healthier. So that, from a trade perspective as well, is going to be key to show in the preseason. And remember, and I'll say this to both of you. People are saying, oh, Howie can't get anything to Jalen Reagor. Oh, yeah, he did. Oh, yeah, he did. Because Minnesota needed a punt returner and made a mistake. They can't get anything for Matt Pryor. Just cut him. Oh, yeah, he did. We're talking day 3 picks. We're talking round 6 or round 7 picks. But if you can get something for the guy and everybody gets through training camp healthy, why is that so hard to understand is I guess what I'm trying to say. That to me makes perfect sense. And I'll throw that to both you guys.
Yeah, I guess your evaluation is that they can actually get a day 3 pick for him. I don't think anybody's going to touch him.
I think Jody, I think you got a Derek Barnett block. I think about what I just mentioned.
Here's the beauty of this, John. We'll know within the next couple of months, right?
I'll say this, Jody Mack. I know this is a completely different sport, but Drew Ellis on the Phillies, for example, former 2nd-round pick. That guy shouldn't have been anywhere near a Major League Baseball organization with how bad he was. And the Phillies took a chance on him in April, claimed him off waivers because he was a former 2nd-round pick. Derek Barnett is a former 1st-round pick. Someone will take a chance.
Yeah, I don't think there's any
he's
doubt.
He's an injured player who hasn't made any plays in 2 years. Okay. If you guys think it's actually going to equate to a 6th-round pick, here's the beauty of it. We'll find out in the next several months.
Yeah. I'm very confident that they'll be able to get something for Derek Barnett. I'm more confident that they'll be able to get something for Derek Barnett than Jalen Reagor. And they got 2 picks for Jalen Reagor. Matt Pryor, he was a 6th-round pick, and Jeff Stoutland works in, he's got such a high reputation. But people were saying they couldn't get anything for Matt Pryor. They got something for Matt Pryor. Howie's very, very, very good at this stuff. But I'll go back to the Leonard Floyd stuff as a whole. Forget about Derek Barnett, because I want to get Jody. You and I agree on DeAndre Hopkins, right? he can't come here because there's no role for DeAndre Hopkins. Well, why is it different with Leonard Floyd? Like, throw Derek Barnett out of the equation. Why would Leonard Floyd, who's not nearly the player DeAndre Hopkins is, but he'll be what, Jeff? You pay attention to the league. He'll be the second, third pass rusher on Buffalo.
Yeah, pretty much.
Why would he come here where there's no role for him, the same as DeAndre Hopkins?
Exactly. There's no reason why he come here. So about a week ago, I update the free agency stuff for CBS Sports, and I ranked like the best player at every position. And I realized Leonard Floyd was still available, and I was thinking, who's going to sign him? He's a one-trick pony at this point in his career. And then he signs with Buffalo, which I'm like, okay, that's a really good fit for him because he's going to play a lot. He's with Von Miller again. I think Von Miller had a lot to do with him going to the Bills. And back to your DeAndre Hopkins point, I'm starting to think of, does Buffalo even have any money left for DeAndre Hopkins? Do they even want DeAndre Hopkins? And Buffalo, they don't need DeAndre Hopkins. I know that's been the fancy there too, put in with Stephon Diggs. But a lot of the Bills guys I talked to say they really don't need a receiver as much as people think they do.
So let me get this straight. Both of you guys said he could be their number 2 defensive end in Buffalo, ahead of Greg Rousseau, who's 1 year removed from being a first-round draft pick.
He'll rotate with him.
I to be fair, I said 2 or 3. Yeah, he could probably beat him out.
Is he going to be ahead of AJ Espinosa? It was a second-round pick
Maybe
2 years ago.
Espinosa's been helter-skelter,
Yeah.
if I want to be honest. But he's still going to get more snaps in Buffalo than he'd ever get here.
Are we comparing Gregory Rousseau to Josh Sweat? Are we comparing AJ Espinosa to Brandon Graham? I mean, the Eagles have the deepest defensive line in the NFL. You brought up, Jody, last week. Who did Bucky Brooks rate as the number 1 unit in the entire NFL?
Eagles defensive line.
Well, I mean, what are we talking about here?
I think but that's including defensive tackles and not just.
Well, yeah, but you think the edge is bringing that down? The edges are better than the tackles.
Can we add Milton Williams to this equation too? Like, he's going to play edge, he's going to play tackle, he's going to be everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, what are we talking about here? How deep?
We're talking about Derek Barnett has no use to this team, and if you can get a better player than Derek Barnett as your 5th defensive end, I would do so if I were Howie Roseman.
How deep can one team possibly be at one position? You can't. This is why I brought up DeAndre Hopkins. You and I are on the same page with DeAndre Hopkins. He doesn't fit not because he's not better than Quez Watkins. He's a hell of a lot better than Quez Watkins. But he doesn't fit in the role. Leonard Floyd is not a 5th defensive end. He's better than that. But he's not Josh Sweat good. I'm not even bringing up Hassan Reddick. He's not Brandon Graham good. And you have a first-round pick. Now, maybe he is better than Nolan Smith in the short term, but I mean, you draft a first-round pick because you think he's going to be part of your team. You don't want to sit there and say, "Oh, we're going to draft a guy with the 30th overall pick, but we're going to sign Leonard Floyd." That's just not how NFL business works.
I ain't benching Nolan Smith for third. How old is Leonard Floyd now? 32, 33? I might be wrong on that, but I'm not benching Nolan Smith for him.
No, exactly. That's all I'm trying to point out. I mean, it's the same fantasy football stuff we were talking about, Jody. Is he better than Derek Barnett? Yeah, probably. But you don't mess around with a 5th defensive end. First of all, you got to convince the guy to come here, which I think is ludicrous, as I said. I mean, that's just not how you do that. He's 30 years old. That's just not how the NFL works. Roles matter.
What did he sign for, Jeff? Do you know?
I don't think they released contract terms yet. I will say this. I think it's a great signing for the Bills. I think the Bills needed pass rusher more than they needed a wide receiver.
Yeah, if Gabriel Davis has a bounce back, I don't think Buffalo's going to struggle offensively. Let's put it that way.
Watch out for Khalil Shakir this year. I think he's gonna have a good year.
They're a good team, and they're a Super Bowl contender, so it makes sense for them to go try and get it. And if the Eagles go and make a move at linebacker, it would make sense. Even if they make a move at safety, it would make sense. But on that defensive line, man, I mean, people just want too much. They want too much. It's gluttony. It's gluttony.
John, speaking of safety, do you think the Eagles are going to play this thing out with Edmonds, Blankenship, Evans, these guys like in training camp, and then make a move? Because you saw the same thing I did Thursday, and
I'm concerned about the back seven, and not the corners. So do the math. I'm talking about the linebackers and the safeties.
And it's not really the back seven, is it? It's the back five.
The back seven as a whole, because they play in concert. But they're buying a corner, but and that'll help the safeties. They're great on the defensive front, as we just said, and that'll help the linebackers. But if they're not good enough, they're not good enough. And I don't think the linebackers are good enough. And I'm speaking specifically because I know people will lose their minds about Nakobe Dean. I'm fine with Nakobe. That's sort of how you have to do business. I was just talking about the business of the NFL. That's how you have to do business. If you have a young player who you project is going to be something, you got to get it started. You got to go in that direction. I'm fine with that. But I'm not fine with Nicholas Morrow. And I'm not fine with either safety, to be perfect. And I don't care who you pick. I mean, it could be Blankenship, it could be Edmonds, it could be Evans, or expecting a third-round pick like Sidney Brown, Jeff, to just hit the ground running and, be Malcolm Jenkins. I don't like that. I don't think that's a great plan.
I think Sidney Brown is going to be a good player for this team, but I think the expectations for this season could be unrealistic because of the safety position.
Yeah, and expectations are part of it because you already have this sort of, mentality of he's a big hitter. He's going to be Brian Dawkins. Everybody, first name, Dawkins.
Macho Harris was Brian Dawkins at one point.
Yeah. Oh, Kayvon Wallace was Brian Dawkins. He had the double hit because he was from Clemson.
Yeah, poor Kayvon.
Yeah. There's 13 safeties in the Hall of Fame. I'm pretty sure none of these safeties are going to be in the Hall of Fame. So
did you see one of those Twitter accounts that is famous for, I don't know what reason, ranked Brian Dawkins 12th on the all-time safeties list? I'm like,
I didn't see it, but
I was 12th.
Well, there's only 13 in the Hall of Fame.
I know, but he had 9 Hall of Famers ahead of Dawkins, which that bothered me.
Well, that probably is. I didn't see it, but yeah,
makes no sense whatsoever. All right, Jeff Kerr, I know, unlike John McMullen, you're a fan of Hard Knocks. I'm a big fan of Hard Knocks. You wrote a whole bunch of stuff.
Who's going to be on Hard Knocks? I don't even know.
We don't know yet. Last year, they announced that the Lions were doing it in March. We're now in June, and they haven't announced the team. There are only 4 that fit under the qualifications. They're not hard and fast rules, but they're guidelines for what teams can or should be on Hard Knocks. And there are only 4 teams in the whole NFL that don't have a get-out-of-Hard Knocks free card.
The Jets are one of them, aren't they?
The Jets, the Saints, the Bears, and the Commanders. The Eagles are not one of them because one of the get-out-of-jail-free cards is if you made the playoffs the last 2 years. So the Eagles did, so they can say, yeah, we'll pass. But we know how this works. If the NFL decides, listen, we want to dictate this. We want to get our best football. We want this specific team on Hard Knocks. If the NFL, Roger Goodell et al. Came to Jeff Lurie and said, listen, it's a really good year to have you on Hard Knocks. Hurts is a major personality. He's a face of the entire league type guy coming off a Super Bowl. You got a coach with a little personality. we want to put you on Hard Knocks. Does Jeff Lurie say, okay, let me talk it over with my people and get back to you, Raj? Or does he just go, no, we got these rules in play. We got these guidelines. We don't qualify. Go bother someone else, Goodell. How's that conversation go?
I would tell him, you got the New York Jets, you got the Washington Commanders available. Go see them because they fall under the qualifications. Now, I don't know how the in-season Hard Knocks works in terms of the rules because they had the Colts in the midst of their playoff run, which, by the way, that was fantastic watching that collapse. And watching the Cardinals collapse last year was incredible.
Were you saying it was fantastic television or was fantastic because you wanted to see the Colts collapse during a playoff?
No, it was fantastic television. And it was fantastic. It was even more fantastic television watching the Cardinals just implode beyond our very eyes. Like, I think DeAndre Hopkins was featured in pretty much every episode until like the last 3 because he practically sat out. So It was very entertaining watching the downfall.
Yeah, I like the preseason one much better than the in-season one.
Well, the in-season one, the only one I was upset with was I don't need to know Carson Wentz is a family man. I know he's a family man. I'm sure he's a great father. I don't need you to tell me that.
Yeah, I tapped out on Hard Knocks, so I can't get in this conversation. But the NFL one, they do sort of these things on their various team websites. It seems like every team now, Jeff, has these behind the scenes sort of shows or videos they do. And they're always so, obviously team friendly because they only show what they want to show. One of my favorites is the draft room. Everybody got the guy they wanted. They cut it. Everybody in the history of the world got the guy they wanted.
What about the guy they didn't want?
Yeah. So they only showed the good. And sadly, I think too many fans only want to see the good. I get that every week. You and I both, took to Twitter, the whole Russell Wilson stuff. I mean, put on the earmuffs, baby ears, if you don't want to hear the truth. So I think Hard Knocks has turned into that. I think it's so, teams have right of first refusal. No, you can't show this, you can't show that. And that's sort of antithetical from what it was when it first started. I think it was the first time fans got to see inside the building of an NFL organization. And I thought it was tremendous. But now, as Jody points out, it's very formulaic. It's the same thing every year. Oh, let's pick out the one guy. You know what it reminds me of? If you guys ever watch like those reality shows about pawn shops or, storage wars.
Ice Road Truckers.
If you see one show, you've seen every show. It's the exact same show. They just have different stuff, but it's the exact same show. That's kind of how I feel about Hard Knocks. It's so antiseptic now. Am I wrong? Because you guys watch it.
Yeah.
I tapped out.
I would agree with you there.
It's new personalities every single year. You can, even though it is formatic and it's very similar, the personalities within those roles that they're using change. And some guys are different. Some guys are outgoing. Some guys are a-holes. It really does. It changes every single year, even though a big part of it is very similar. I still enjoy the show. And I'd love to see the Eagles be on it this year. That's why we brought this up, because we're now well after when they usually get the start date, which means all the teams that are in consideration, there's some kind of holdup or hurdle that they got to get over. If none of them want to do it, and Roger Goodell goes, all right, fine, screw you all. I'm going to pick who's going to be on Hard Knocks this year. Jeff Kerr, you were given the power. HBO called you. They hired you to be a VP of programming. And they said, Jeff Kerr, we've just gotten this great deal with the NFL. We have the right to tell them who we're going to do on Hard Knocks this year. Who would you pick?
You're giving me Patrick Burns' job here because that's the guy who does it. So give me the Detroit Lions again. I want a sequel.
Now wait, McMullen just said it's 2 repetitions.
I don't care.
Same thing over and over and over again. At least I defended it in it. The personalities change. You want to go more to the Detroit Lions? You need more knee biting with Dan Campbell?
I need a whole season.
You're fired. Kerr, you're fired.
I need a whole season of that guy.
for 20 minutes. Stop. You're done.
I
20
talked to
seconds.
enough Lions players that have told me so many fun stories about Dan Campbell. I'm embracing the guy. I really hope that team wins because
How
I
about
love
this? Put up the camera of Nick Sirianni telling Darius Slay hiring Matt Patricia. Now that I want to see. If you can get me that kind of stuff, I'll get back into Hard Knocks.
Did you get to take a picture of Matt Patricia on Thursday, John? Because I got one.
I don't think I got a picture of Matt, but I am interested to talk to Nick Sirianni this week about Matt Brady and Matt Patricia. Not what's his Marcus Brady.
Yeah, Marcus
and Matt
Brady.
Patricia. Sort of new roles on the coaching staff. He hasn't had that role of senior offensive assistant, senior defensive assistant. So I want to ask him, what the hell do those guys do? I'm going to be interested to hear his explanation. And I think a lot of people, because of Matt's history and reputation, some good, some bad, that's higher profile than Marcus Brady. But what do you think of the coaching staff as a whole, the changes? I thought the continuity from year one to year two was very important, and now we're in sort of uncharted waters, so to speak.
Well, think about this. So the Eagles, I believe they're only the third team to make the Super Bowl and lose both their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator in the same offseason. 94 49ers were one. They lost
Ray Rhodes, right?
Yeah, Ray Rhodes and Mike Shanahan. So
Yeah.
they were the two, and the Chargers were the other. And I'm trying to remember who their coordinators were. I think it was like 20. Well, they didn't make the Super Bowl, but so they're only a second Super Bowl team. The Chargers did lose both. When who's their head coach? Was it Norv Turner in 2010? I'm trying to remember. Yeah,
Norv Turner.
Yeah, but they lost Mike McCoy, and they lost who's their defensive coordinator? I'm drawing a blank.
Drawing a blank.
Yeah, but the 94 49ers, obviously, now, granted, they had a lot of changes because Ray Rhodes took Ricky Waters, and, the 95 49ers were a very good team, but something always felt off with that team, and Steve Young's injury played a role in that. But I'm curious to see how this works with Brian Johnson, who is Jalen Hurts' guy. I think they're going to be fine on offense. Desai, again, I mean, say what you want about Jonathan Gannon, and there's plenty to say about Jonathan Gannon, but they did have the number one pass defense last year, and they were the lowest pass defense in terms of yards allowed.
Doesn't matter, Jeff. I'm told every day it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Anybody could have done
you need a scapegoat. I still will hold this conviction that while Jonathan Gannon is a scapegoat, and he rightly should be, I think Eagles fans have a hard time admitting Andy Reid put on a clinic against them.
You think it's that they don't want to give Andy Reid credit?
Oh, I think they want to give Andy Reid credit, but I still think it kind of.
Speaking of Hard Knocks, we can talk about NFL films. They had it. I think it was Inside the NFL. They had them mic'd up. The Chiefs ran the wrong play. They were lined up wrong. They just adjusted correctly. Patrick Mahomes recognized it, changed to the other side of the field, got people on the same page. That's the communicate. That's, I think, the difference.
Cam Jurgens talked about that on Thursday, being the right guard, having the communication with the tackle, the center. That's what Jason Kelsey's teaching him. And, maybe that's one thing the Eagles picked up this offseason. Be sharp.
Everybody's talking about Andy's great. You'll never hear me say a bad thing about Andy, but they ran the wrong play because they lined up incorrectly. Bottom line.
By the way, so this is a big thing in Kansas City right now because they signed Donovan Smith, so they probably don't have the money to get DeAndre Hopkins. They really feel Kadarius Toney can be a number one wide receiver. It's crazy, I know. Kadarius Toney.
I don't doubt Andy Reid. I shouldn't say that. He will get the most out of Kadarius Toney as anyone could. And I don't doubt that he will be better there than certainly the Giants and most other places. But Jody can tell you, I did not like that draft pick at all when the
Who will-
Giants went to.
There were 2 draft picks I really liked on Kansas City that play wide receiver, Sky Moore and Rasheed Wright. I think those 2 are going to be really good in that offense.
Right. And, oh, by the way, playing with Patrick Mahomes never hurts.
Yeah.
Well,
He
that
kind of
helps,
makes every wide receiver that he plays with better than what most people think they're going to be. So
By the way, John,
I'll
did
give
you-
Andy credit, but I'm going to give more credit to the quarterback.
By the way, John, did you see our boy? Chris Sims ranked Daniel Jones higher than Dak Prescott on his quarterback list. Come on.
Really?
Yes.
Are you serious?
Yep.
I think Chris does stuff for for engagement. I did notice he's up to like 9 or 10, somewhere around there.
Yeah,
And he hasn't gotten to
yet?
Jalen Hurts yet. So either Jalen's going to be top 10 or he's outside the top 40 again. I think he's going to be top 10.
Good for
What
Chris
was
Sims.
his reasoning that year he put him outside the top 4?
Inaccurate. Jalen didn't complete a high percentage of his passes.
I think
and he
it's
said,
a total.
there's no way you can improve your passing. You are what you are as far as passing. Wrong.
Is that what he was told when he played? Because he was bad in the NFL.
I just looked him up. He's up to number 9. So Dak is 13. Kirk Cousins is 12. Daniel Jones is 11.
Dak is 13. Oh, my God.
That's a
John
disrespect.
McMullen, you are 100% right. That is purely an attempt to tick off Cowboy Nation.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you got Dak Prescott as the 13th ranked quarterback in the NFL,
that's
you're doing
absurd.
for a reason. To garner
By the-
attention, to
by the
piss
way,
off all the
McMullen,
Cowboy fans.
Did you know that apparently, according to Cowboys fans, there isn't a big difference between 20 yards and 25 yards?
Yeah, I see. I'm at the point, Jeff, where if you don't have a real name or at least a real picture on your Twitter account, I'm not even engaging. I mean, mute right away. Right away. I mean, these people, I saw Jody will get this. MJF, I got to get my wrestling reference today. 7% of the audience engages on Twitter, which is, largely true from a perspective of pro sports, or in this case, entertainment. And boy, they make a lot of noise, and they never have the balls to put their name on it or their face on it or everything. I'm shutting those people down, Jeff Kerr. I see you with God bless you. You're doing God's work dealing with these people. Yeah, there's a difference between 20 and 25 yards.
The irony is the 2 Cowboys fans I didn't mute, they actually had faces and they actually wanted to have an honest discussion.
Well,
about
that's
it.
fine.
Yeah,
that's fine. Yeah,
because they asked, they said there is a big difference. They said, because can you show us his 20, 21, 20? Can you do that? And I actually did it for them, and they're like, oh wow, so why is it this? I said, where your ball travels. I said, that's why the T.Y. Hilton thing I was so upset about, because he doesn't complete those passes. No one does. It ain't just Dak. Jalen Hurts is really the only one that was quote unquote accurate from 25 plus air yards last year, and it was only 40%. It's a hard pass to complete compared to 20.
Yes, it is.
All right, JK, last thing before we let you run, Mr. NFC East. Couple different reports over the weekend. Ralph Vecchiano, we've had on the show. Ralph, I know, very good.
Ralph is awesome, by the way.
Reporter. And John Machota of the Cowboys, we also have on the show. Both reported, don't be looking for DeAndre Hopkins to land here. Ralph for the Giants, Machota for the Cowboys. I get it with the Cowboys. They made the trade to add to wide receiver 2. They've got a lot of money invested in wide receiver already. Giants don't have interest in DeAndre Hopkins. They're not willing to get up to what neighborhood financially he's playing with. He steps in there. If he's healthy, he's wide receiver 1. If he comes to Philadelphia, he's wide receiver 3. Or you want to argue between he and Devontae for wide receiver 2, probably he's going to land at 3. He goes to Giants, he's wide receiver 1. Why are the Giants out on him?
I think the Giants like what they got. Honestly, I think they like the Darren Waller move at tight end.
Now, wait a minute. You're going to question Andy Reid when he says, I think that the former Giant wide receiver could be a number 1. But you're going to co-sign with the Giants are good with the wide receivers they have?
I'm just saying telling you what I think the Giants think. They like what they did this
But
offseason.
you don't agree with it. You think the Giants are
I think
overrating the wide receivers they have.
Oh, absolutely. I think they overrated their offensive line moves they made this offseason.
Yeah. Isaiah Hodgins, I always say Hodgins. Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell, don't forget they signed Jalen Hyatt, they drafted Sterling Shepard, still there, Wan'Dale Robinson.
It's better than it was last year.
They have some depth, but they don't have that top guy. Yeah, they don't have that guy.
It doesn't feel like, the Eagles and the Thrash Pigskin, Freddie Mitchell years. It's like, yeah, okay. Like, they're fine.
They got a bunch of 3s and 4s.
Right.
Is what they got.
They don't have a difference maker.
Yeah.
And they're really, if you really want to help your quarterback, you get DeAndre Hopkins.
That's the point I was making. That's why I asked you, Jeff Kerr. That's why we have you on, to give us your opinions. Thank you much for doing so today. We'll punch up again soon, brother.
Absolutely, boys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Jeff Kerr, CBSSports.com, here with us on Birds 365. All right, show's running out of time. We got to come back and put a bow on it.